Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Pasta's also on the ones and twos. Got the Stream Deck on, fam, but I used the old settings, and now it's taking me back to Johnny Magic over here, what he used to use for the it doesn't even work anymore because it was plugged into OBS. So now I have to reprogram this sound key, this little Stream Deck, so I can get my hoo-ah.
It's okay if we never hear that again.
Fam, I got the light behind me over here. Look at this right there. See, like a little light over there. Nice little green, purple, yellow. It changes colors. I got my yellow vest, fam, because the French are leading the way, and I'm ready to get in the streets and protest against Macron and the rest of his little cronies. How you doing over there, fam? How's Moscow?
Moscow's good. It's happy. Z is here. She is here.
No, you said it right, Z. G.
No, it's she.
It's G, right?
It's she.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the reality. My colleague, who literally worked in China, lived in China, speaks Mandarin, told everybody at work it's pronounced she, like she. So don't argue with me. I'm going to go to her. She knows the language. She's lived there.
All right.
She says
fam,
it's she.
What I
I'm
want
going
you
to go
do,
with she.
Check the settings for your microphone because it's been StreamYards has been acting weird. I want to also give you the code so you can jump in on your end, and then we'll go from there. On a quick announcement, fam, guess who's going to Cuba?
You are.
Pasta's going to Cuba on Thursday. Don't know who's going to be there with me. I've riled up the troops. I don't have permission yet to observe the election, so I'm going to go to the information ministry and do what's what. But Danny Shaw has hooked me up with some cool ass people that I can work with over there. I told Wyatt if he wants to come out there and hang with me, he's more than welcome to. Of course, we invited all the usual suspects, Terry Mattson. But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do what I can do. Thank you to all our supporters and people who said no. Just get your ass to Cuba and see what happens then. So, fam, that's what's going to happen this Thursday. I will be on a plane flying to Cuba, which means Friday and Monday you will be Han Solo. Now, Friday, you'll be joined by the lovely and the smart and the charismatic Mark Sleboda, and you guys will be able to break down this whole Xi Putin aftermath on, because I know a lot of people in the West are going to start going crazy. Even the normies know about this trip, fam.
Yeah, it's a really big deal, especially with what's been said so far. So we're going to get into it in a second, but the majority of the talks will be tomorrow. So right now, Rachel's on the news desk in Moscow. She'll be there until till like almost 2:00 in the morning, Moscow time. So for the next 2 hours. So after you're done here, maybe catch some of the latest. They'll repeat the last few for you guys. And that'll be
news desk for a couple days.
Huh?
You're off the news desk for a couple days. Why didn't they give you a couple days off?
I'm off the fam.
6 days straight. So that's it. Blah.
Bam. I never stop working. I'm here with you, and I've been following everything that's been going on since this morning.
Yeah, I'm with you. So. I got to go on as soon as we were done with AM Wake Up, but we had Clint Russell on, so we talked a lot about more what's going on with Swiss Bank. Fam, it's kind of like this backdoor bailout to the big banks because with SVB, what was it? Silicon Valley Bank, right? Mm-hmm. They're bailing out the people, deposit holders, but they said the creditors or the people who made investments go scratch, but they'll find other mechanisms and avenues in which they probably can find their money back. But when it comes to certain other banks, global banks, they've offered them like unlimited amounts of borrowing for some of these major banks. And when they do that, when they make the cash register go brrr, which they did, they printed up, I think, 300 billion now, again, out of thin air. That's going to devalue our currency at the end of the day. So we're going to pay for it at the end of the day with inflation. So very interesting things are going on. He was on, as well as Johnny Vedmore was on the first hour, fam. And then tomorrow we got T-Lab Tuesday, and T-Lab is having a fundraiser, which they're doing really good, rotating people in and out. Richard Gage, Jay Dyer, Richard Grove, Jason Burmis, Steve Whitney, Johnny, Taylor Hudak was there. Just some awesome people going in and out there. Scott Armstrong's running the whole thing with Christian. So that Ryan Christian was awesome. And I also got a chance, fam, and this is something I'm going to probably have to revisit maybe on Wednesday, the Iraq War. Sam Husseini wrote an article on Substack And we were going over, this was on the critical hour with Dr. Wilmer, Wilmer Leon and Garland Nixon, and what great conversations that was, fam. So this is my 4th show today. So don't feel bad. I'm there with you, working like crazy, but that's what we do, right?
Yeah. And so Wednesday we have Vanessa Beeley.
Yes.
And Thursday
Wednesday
we have Mark
Vanessa Beeley because there's a lot of stuff going on with Assad.
Yes, lots of stuff. And Friday we have Mark Sloboda, which will be with me. We'll let you guys know on the time. Usually we go way earlier, but today I had some things to do, so it's totally my fault that it's late. But also you guys change an hour, so now it's like less time, and it throws everything off for me because you guys do your dumb like. Did you go back an hour or forward an hour?
We did spring forward.
Yeah, spring forward. Yeah. So it throws everything off for me in terms of stuff. But Wednesday will be earlier, and so will Friday. Anyway, okay, let's get started on Trump.
Well, fam, I'm going to say this much. First of all, I'd like to say that the big problem here is not the Democrats. At the end of the day, it's China, because they're the ones pulling the string. And what's going on, fam, is that Donald Trump, and by the way, fam, I got suckered into it again. I was invited to another one of those Twitter spaces. By the way, I have a Twitter space tomorrow. I almost forgot. Twitter space tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, with Mark Finch. I'm going to go over the old way and the new way for mail-in ballots, because that's a huge problem across the country. A lot of states, fam, have adapted and then adapted to the COVID protocol election style ways of voting, meaning mass mail-outs. And the way they do it is kind of crazy. But a guy, Mark Fincham, who is friends with number 45 being Donald Trump, fam, and I went on that Twitter talk that they never let me speak, says he's going to be arrested. And man, did the tribal friggin' fam, this is narrative management with this guy, Mario Nawal. Like literally, they have just leftists that are shit liberty as can be, screaming at conservatives that are part of the populist right.
Yeah, of course.
And they're keeping people in this red team versus blue team, left versus right mentality. And I had my hand up for an hour and a half, and I was invited to come speak. Never got the chance to. And I just wanted to say, stop, fam. Stop. This is ridiculous. Enough of this red team, blue team shit. And let's talk about the independent-minded voices who are sick and tired of this. There's a lot more things to worry about.
Well, they wouldn't have anything to do if they didn't have that back and forth, right? Like nuance isn't known as to be like the sexy thing. They want the team versus the other team. Like that's what gets these people going, not actual people that make any sense. So of course, yeah. I don't know who that account is, but I it's really sus, and I don't know why people like constantly follow that account as
Mario on the wall.
Yeah, like I've just never seen it's like not a real profile picture, not a real anything, just like a person. Really sus.
He's a real dude and everything, but what had happened?
Yeah, but
these Twitter spaces, he got like Hunter Biden on one of them, and he's been the go-to person of sorts for hosting a lot of these Twitter talks. But
you have to ask yourself why.
Yeah, absolutely. It's narrative management, totally. Yeah. And the red team, blue team mentality is just ridiculous. No independent voices whatsoever, and that's what they want people focused in on. It says Donald Trump claimed on Saturday that his arrest is imminent and issued an extraordinary call for his supporters to protest as a New York grand jury investigates hush money to a woman who alleged sexual encounters with the former president. This is the Stormy Daniels shit. They've already dealt with this thing on a national level. So now they're going to do it. This is the state level. This is the New York attorney. Even as Trump's lawyers and spokesperson said there had been no communication from prosecutors, Trump declared in a post on a social media platform that he expects to be taken into custody on Tuesday, fam.
So,
and I will share this here, and this is it right here.
Yeah, let's read his post, and then I have something to say about this whole thing.
Well, this is page 2. Let me, first of all, let me just go to this. I want to go to the whole one, because page 1 and page 2, because it's very important. And I have it. Don't worry, fam, because it's the language that's going on. And I will find another post too as well. And I want your opinion on this one, because it was like, holy shit. Donald Trump's rhetoric is very much similar to, in some ways, what all the other neocons are talking about. So this is it right here. Our nation is now a third world and dying. The American dream is dead, fam. The radical left anarchist. The radical left anarchist. The left that want more government, that want more control, that want more power are now anarchists. And this is what Tom Fitton said on that freaking Twitter talk. And I kept hitting the laughing and crying button. They have stolen our presidential election, and with it, the heart of our country. American patriots are being arrested and held in captivity like animals, while criminals and leftist thugs are allowed to roam the streets, killing and burning with no retribution. Millions are flooding through our open borders, many from prisons and mental institutions. Crime and inflation are destroying our very way of life. Now, this is the second part. Legal leaks from a corrupt and highly political Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has allowed new records to be set in violent crime and whose leader is funded by George Soros, indicate that with no crime being able to be proven and based on an old and fully debunked by numerous other prosecutors fairy tale, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest.
Yeah.
Take back our nation. Uh-oh.
Yeah. So
Uh-oh.
I have so much to say on this. It's just so blatantly obvious to me what this is. Like,
what is it, fam?
This is entirely on purpose. Trump's, first of all, arresting Trump will guarantee some sort of protest. It will guarantee the right rising up and doing something about it. In their attempts on the elections, even though we don't have fair elections, they're going to be really, really ramped up about that. It would basically guarantee the strengthening of the Republican Party, the strengthening of the right in the United States. Believe it or not, that benefits the neoliberal establishment, because then what they do is they turn around and use that to punish the entire country and say that these people are fascists and they're trying to take over the government and blah, blah, blah. The same way Trump is saying that these anarchists, which are these liberals he's talking about, who are not anarchists at all. I mean, but a lot of them do call themselves anarchists online or communists or whatever. So, they go with that. And that's also by design. It's the infiltration of these movements, both on the right. You have the populist right that's been infiltrated by neocons. And then you have the left that hasn't been infiltrated by neoliberals, essentially. And so you have these two factions fighting each other. And with Trump's rhetoric, he's basically trying to say, this stuff, it doesn't matter, it's fake, but he's blaming it on like these ideas of the left that don't exist in reality. He's saying that we have open borders, we don't have open borders. He's saying that there's just all of this crime and blah, blah, blah. We're a third world country. Yeah, the United States is descending economically, but it's not because of the factors he's outlining. It's not because of China. It's not because of these illegals. It's not because of all the stuff he's saying. It's because of our own deep state, our own government. And so by doing this, he's basically riling up red meat to his team for them to go after the Antifa left, the whatever, all those people that he calls these violent thugs and anarchists. And then in turn, those idiots are celebrating, saying, haha, you're getting Trump. This is ridiculous. What they have on him is absolutely ridiculous. It's nothing. It's, if you want to go after presidents, if you're going to go after Trump, you'd have to go after every single president that has pretty much sat on more death and destruction than Donald Trump. And I'm not even a Trump fan, but that's just a fact. The reality is Donald Trump, beside killing Soleimani, which was big, beside what he was trying to do in Latin America, which was also big, he wasn't George Bush. He wasn't Barack Obama. He wasn't necessarily that. And I think that in itself is fine, because he really wasn't in charge. He didn't drain the swamp like he said he would. But the reality is they're throwing this ridiculous porn bullshit on him, like, that has no merit. It is a complete and total clown show. He shouldn't be arrested for that. He shouldn't be arrested for, he hasn't done anything that any of these other presidents haven't done. We can go back to thinking about arresting Joe Biden for the crimes he's accused of sexually. But the reality is, by doing this, it riles up the right, it riles up the liberal left, and then you just have these teams going at each other. Meanwhile, by the way, so much is going on foreign policy wise. So many things are happening economically as well. You have to think, look what's happening in the United States economically in Ohio, as well, with the poisoning of the residents of East Palestine, Ohio. What's going on economically with SVB Bank and what they're trying to do now, and also what's going on foreign policy wise right now with Russia, with China. And then you have this. I'm sorry, I don't believe Trump is outside of the system. I believe he is being used by the system itself to create this division, because at the end of the day, the more fighting you have versus blue team and red team, that's all it is, and that's all everybody gets sucked into. And then you have zero changes, you have zero dialogue, zero anything. And that's exactly, I believe, the plan of the United States is to drive this country into a destructive civil war where you have these two factions that can't work with each other, because nothing works better to control an entire population than have the two people that really shouldn't be fighting each other instead of them. And that's exactly what's continuing with this whole thing, I think.
You know, there's more to it too about than just the Stormy Daniels situation and Michael Cohen and the hush money and all that other bullshit, because they're trying to say it's something more like a campaign finance law that was broken. It's a new one of sorts. You know, Donald Trump is a public person, so if he was giving money to somebody else to settle outside of whatever, it should be kind of legal. But, you know, I mean, they're going to attempt that. But there is this talk about what's going on with Truth Social, fam. And this is the other element, the part that a lot of people aren't looking into. Now, first of all, we don't know the evidence that's going to be brought to him. I believe his name is General Attorney Bragg has not released that yet. So this was a sort of just a leeway into what's going on. How did he get the information? How did he leak it out? Yada, yada, yada. But Truth Social took two different donations, one of $2 million, one of $6 million. It's almost $8 million. Now, the inner circle, fam, when you hear them start talking about this, they're trying to link these people, these oligarchs, this money to right directly to guess who? Putin. And it's kind of obvious when this is coming out that this is just so controlled freaking narrative. This is a narrative operation, because at the same time, you got the House, instead of fighting to end all the mandates that are everywhere, the House is just obsessed with the Hunter Biden situation. And what are they saying? That he got money directly from China. People don't realize that China has a huge banking industry. In fact, they jail and execute some of their corrupt bankers over there. I wish they would start doing that over here, because that would straighten up a lot of people from their speculation and their robbing of the middle class. But with that being said, you have people on the right are going, Hunter Biden took money from China. He took money. Like Xi Jinping is over there going, yes, give him the $1 billion and stuff. It was an energy company. They have their own banking situation. You know what I'm saying? So this rhetoric back and forth of the left, once again, pointing the finger, it's Putin. Donald Trump is owned by Putin. Look at the money it came from Putin, because this guy knew somebody who was a cousin that once had ice cream in Moscow with Vladimir Putin or whatever. They're trying to make that connection. And the same thing happens on the right. And that's the thing that a lot of people aren't talking about. And you might hear a lot more talk about the true social money coming. But I mean, I didn't get a chance to jump in that Twitter talk, but these are the things I want to talk about. Yeah. I mean, how can the right just so, without even knowing what's going on and being so ignorant, going, Hunter Biden got money from China. He got money from the CCP. They're acting like the money came directly from the CCP. I mean,
but you just said it. The liberals do the same thing with Russia.
Huh?
The liberals do the same thing with Russia. But it's again, ridiculous. That's by design. That's literally the whole entire point of them doing this. Oh, he's owned by Putin. Oh, he's owned by China. Like by Xi. Oh my God. Okay. Well, what do you do after with those arguments? You can't get any sort of solution. You can't get any sort of you can't move the conversation anywhere when people just make a sermon. Soros, like every 5 seconds, everything is Soros, everything is Biden, everything is China, everything is Russia. Like everything is that. So it doesn't matter if they're dumbass liberals or if they're conservatives or whatever they want to call themselves. It's always somebody owning somebody else. And I understand that happens, that there is infiltration and there is, but you can't just say that without having any sort of evidence to that. And then what ends up happening is what Trump's language is just so, it's just so from what you see online. It's very QAnon, and he wasn't even supporting QAnon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just very weird to me that he's putting this out like that. It's just very much like goes right in line. It seems to me like red meat to his base. And again, he will like, I think, we don't have fair elections, so it's hard to say he could take the general election, but I definitely, people would be really angry enough to support him and pretty much overtake it. And in the eyes of the world, because of Russia, Ukraine, the Republicans have been far less, far more anti-war and less hawkish than the Democrats. And you could say that
right now,
in regard to that conflict.
Not if we look back to Iraq, right? Once again,
no. Yeah. Or if we look forward to China, because that's already happening. Yes, but people don't understand that. They're just looking at what's happening right now. And even people here, the perception is Republicans are less hawkish. And I try to say right at this moment, but you saw what you'll see what they're saying right now with this meeting with China, and they're not liking it at all. So it's very easy to turn both of these factions into hawks cheering for the next war if it's the right enemy that you're pointing them to. And that's, of course, just the masses going at each other. And it's a shit mess. Like, if somebody made me president tomorrow, I honestly, it would just be extremely difficult to navigate those waters because of just how everything is. But you start by literally getting rid of the people that you need to get rid of and the agencies you need to get rid of. And then you literally hide and have like 20 doubles so you don't get shot, because that's literally what would happen. I don't know. It's a real mess, fam, in the States. Just looking at the politics of it, it just seems so stupid. It seems like theater. It seems like just WWE. I don't know. It seems all of it honestly seems really fake to me. Looking at the difference between how US politicians interact with each other and like Putin and Xi are interacting, it's just completely different, like energy, completely different. Just the way everything seems so manufactured in the West, especially in the United States. I don't know what to tell you, fam. I'm not saying it's a Truman Show, but it really does not seem real to me.
It's the marmot. The marmot fucked up everything, got in a goddamn hydrogen collider, and just screwed us into the worst. Now we have a crazy, smart ass, evil, methodical marmot that's just causing problems everywhere in the United States. But will Trump be arrested? That is the question. Is it for real, or is it just another narrative management operation? Let's take a look, because what I look at, fam, more than anything is how do the people react, right? That whole Twitter space was all about how the people are reacting, how the ruling class wants us to react. Like you said, fam, they want us in a civil war. But let's take a look at some of the shit libs and how they go cray-cray over this stuff.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States.
America's
I should be provided some context. They were putting this video out there. They said this is how excited they're going to be when Trump gets arrested, and they were comparing it to when Biden got elected. So I'm just going to play the rest of this out real quick.
Oh, we made history.
Can you feel my body shaking like my last breath taking? This world's my joy. This world's my joy. Can you feel the earth quaking? Feel my burdens breaking. This world's my joy. Now I can't get enough.
You marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted.
Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America, and may God protect our church.
Now I can't get enough.
Jesus Christ.
And it was like, that's how happy we're going to be when Donald Trump gets arrested. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? That's what you're playing. And by the way, that's not a lot of people. for changing of the guard. We've been to countries where the people out there is a lot more people, celebrating, in Colombia and all this other shit in Nicaragua. So
Oh yeah,
that's not a lot of
Nicaragua.
people. And fam, I counted a lot of masks on. But I do want to point out that during the Twitter talk, and I sent back this message to Mario on the wall. Is it in the fall or on the wall? I don't even fucking know. I don't care anymore. He had this guy on, Brian Krasenstein, which this guy's got close to how many followers? He's got a shit ton of followers. He's got 634,000 followers. But as this idiot's speaking the whole time, I'm just biting my tongue. I have my hand up. I want to speak. Look at this tweet here, fam. Within 72 hours, both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump will either have been arrested or have an arrest warrant out. He's talking about the ICC court, right? If I was to tell Republicans this 2 years ago, they would have laughed and jumped to the defense of both these men. The even sadder thing is that when I tweet this post, many of those same people will jump to both of their defenses as well. Look in the mirror. Think about what America stands for. The GOP is a train wreck right now. They are laughing at you. And hearing this,
and the Democratic Party isn't.
Oh my God. When he was speaking during the Twitter talk, I mean, he also made another tweet that said that somebody was going after George Soros, a Holocaust survivor. This is the most un-American thing you can do. These are the assholes they have playing team sports in the narrative management operation. That is one of them. And I will show another one after your thoughts, fam.
Yeah, I mean, this thing to try to tie Putin to Trump is just hilarious because that's just not the case.
They're still doing it.
Russia may be diplomatic and they'll talk to any president, but Trump may have visibly not have been as aggressive toward Russia, but in other ways he pretty much followed the same policy and pretty much readied everything that's happening now. There was no exposure to what's going on in what was going on in Donbass. There was nothing from the Republicans on that. There's literally nothing. Just like the left didn't know where Ukraine was on a map until they were told to, the right literally never mentioned Donbass. Never once said, "Hey, we need to stop this." Blah blah blah. Not until it gave them an opportunity to attack Democrats. This is because you can't have these conversations and say, yeah, Trump, because they're both being arrested, that means they're the same. You can't have intelligent conversations with these people because they only look at things superficially. So it's really hard to even try to go down to their low level frequency existence to try to have a conversation and go in this it's just kind of really really to do. But basically people like this guy Krasenstein, and I've heard of him, and people on the other end of the spectrum get their money because this is exactly what they do. They just scream at each other and they just attack each other, but there's really no solutions provided to anybody. And then everybody's like, oh, let's jump on this team and that team. And that's all that ends up happening. And I don't see anything coming out of this other than this is a distraction. I think this is a complete entire distraction from really what's happening to most Americans right now. I think Trump is a part of the distraction. I've thought he was a part of the distraction for a really long time. He is a businessman. He is in some ways a reality TV star, right? He's been in Hollywood. He's definitely not a typical status quo politician. That doesn't mean that he's anything more than essentially a charlatan. And when I criticize Trump, I don't criticize Trump for the same reasons that liberals criticize Trump. I criticize Trump because he failed to do or even remotely try to do what he said he was going to do. He filled his entire administration with the slump. He filled his entire administration with literally the people of the State Department that shouldn't have been there. He pretty much followed a lot of Obama's policies in terms of the border. He really, the border is the same. The Obama-Biden administration built these cages, right? And had the same type of border policy that Trump did and that Biden has. There's been very little changes. They always use the escape of Mexican cartels and illegals on the right and on the liberal side, which is why that video angers me the most, because on the liberal side, that video makes it oh my gosh, we fight for equality, we fight for minorities, we fight for this. They don't do shit
fight for our democracy.
Nothing. And this is, again, Democrat, Republican, part of the U.S. State Department, part of the CIA, part of the military industrial complex. They're all part of the same fucking machine. When will people get that through their head? Well, maybe. No, there's no well, maybe. They're all part of the same thing. Their kids hang out. They marry each other. They go to the same schools. They literally are part of the same group.
Yep.
They live off of you thinking your neighbor and you need to fight each other. That's how they continue to stay in power. And until people really understand and stop saying, well, maybe if Trump, maybe this and that, it's going to be the same thing. So it gets really tiring for me to continue repeating myself. It's just so obvious at this point what this is. And people just keep getting duped.
If we're talking about this bullshit, we're not talking about Ukraine. We're not talking about the constant gravy train that's going there. We're not talking about the fact that their F-16s are being sent there from Poland. We're not talking about the fact that Poland is gearing up to probably take the place of the Ukrainians once they were out of troops, and they have over 100,000 troops minimal that have been killed. And that's that. If we're talking about this, we're not talking about the banks and the fact that they're going to find ways to bail out these big banks, and some of the bigs are going to swallow the smalls, and that's going to even hurt us even more. If we're talking about this, we're not talking about Ohio anymore, where dioxins went in the air, the water is contaminated, and they're trying to make you forget about it right away. And the fact that there's train derailments almost every single other fucking day, and we're supposed to have an infrastructure a package coming down the road. Well, why won't we redo our rail systems the way China has it done? It's ridiculous. If we're talking about this, we're not talking about the drilling in the Arctic that's been opened up for what's about to happen over there. If we're talking about this, we're not talking about the cartels and the fact that they want to go into Mexico. And if we're talking about this crap, we're not talking about the fact that Iran and Saudi Arabia have now brokered a deal by China, bringing them together, and that is the only thing that's keeping our dollar afloat. People don't understand this. If Saudi Arabia decides, and they haven't done it yet, when people go, they've already been doing it. Like, no, they have not. Saudi Arabia has not been selling or trading oil in any other currency other than the American dollar. That's what they agreed to 40 years ago. And that's the only thing that keeps our dollar afloat. And if that falls, then your dollar falls. So if you're so concerned and you think you want to get money, and you're not realizing what money is, how it's made, and how it's appropriated, and how it's controlled, you're going to be in a lot of trouble here. I want to play this cuck over here, even though he's a New York Knicks fan. He's such an asshole. And this is the mentality, fam. What a little twat Michael Rappaport has become, fam. His theory is that Trump is out of favors. I mean, really, that's it? You're out of favors? So basically, despite Biden being corrupt, he's part of the ruling class that still has some pull, so it's okay. And I just wanted to tell Mike Rappaport, nobody likes you anymore. Just go the fuck away.
Tuesday, it's happening. It's happening. It's going to be a great day. Trump himself said he's getting arrested. He doesn't lie, so we know he's telling the truth. He never lies. And the reason why it's happening is because he's out of favors. Okay, you know how hard it is to be that rich, to use up all your favors, where people will stop pardoning you, where people will stop acting like things are happening when we know they're happening. And they go, well, what about Biden? This is not about Biden. Okay, Biden still has favors. Do you have Biden derangement syndrome? Barack still has favors. Bush, Bill Clinton, they all have favors because none of them are as big of a prick as Trump. Oh yeah, they're all corrupt, but none of them are as big of a obnoxious prick as Trump. Reminds me of that scene in The Godfather where Tessio says, for old time's sakes, and they say, sorry, Sally, can't do it. That's what's happening with Trump. Sorry, can't do it. We don't like you. You're an obnoxious animal who's out of favors. Now we're going to throw you in jail. Can't wait for Tuesday.
This is what we got, fam. You're out of favor. You're done with the elites. And don't ever quote The Godfather ever again,
please.
Piece of...
That's an insult to me.
Oh, my God. What a freaking cuck you are, Michael Rappaport, man.
Oh, my God.
This is what we got. How out of touch you are with the working class. You privileged piece of shit that you get to sit there and you say, well, it's because he's out of favors. He's
They're
got
all
no
corrupt.
favors with the ruling class, fam. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? Excuse my French for cursing, fam.
If you put Trump's war crimes side by side with Barack Obama, with Bill Clinton and Bush, I hate to tell you, dude, but Trump would be the least corrupt.
hands down.
As far as a body count, as far as international war crimes, yeah, he would. And I mean, it's just so stupid. It just like there are valid criticisms of Trump, and any valid criticism goes out the window with these liberals on purpose, because if they were to validly criticize him, they'd have to validly criticize themselves, and they refuse to do that because they know like that they would have to, literally jail Hillary Clinton, jail Bill Clinton, jail George Bush, jail Obama, and pretty much everybody that's been involved, Nancy Pelosi, like all of these people, they all deserve to go to jail, but they're so focused on Donald Trump. And of course, the next focus, of course, has been Vladimir Putin. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, because Russia's like, what the hell are you talking about? We don't recognize this. You don't either. So what's this about?
Yeah. And it's like, really quickly, the last tweet I have really quickly, I'm just going to show you, because Donald Trump is very much like the rest of the other neocons too, because the language is there. Look at this tweet he tweeted just the other day, or Truth Social, whatever. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and other nations of less than friendly nature are busy carving up the world. I want to stop there for 1 second. Number one, you're just implementing right now that these nations are less friendly. They're more savage. They're the ones we have to keep an eye on. And who's there? Russia's there. You know what I'm saying? They're there. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. We know that, no matter what, at the end of the day, he might act like, he's all friendly and cool. But an enemy or an adversary is an enemy and an adversary, because that's who Donald Trump works for. As our once great United States of America sits back and watches, we are a failing nation with open borders, fake elections, and a horrible inflation-riddled economy. We no longer set the standard. The standard sets us. What the fuck? Why are we supposed to be the ones that are allowed to go around the world and being nation-building, a nation-building apparatus, as we're the ones of the moral authority? Right. We're the smart ones. We're the leaders of the world. We want to keep winning. It's the same crap with just different language, fam. I mean, he hired the same people. He hired Pence, right? Okay, first of all, picking Pence as your vice president. I don't know why nobody caught this when I was saying this. I was like, wait a second. This guy is over here saying the Iraq war was a mistake, that he would have never done it, that anybody involved with this whole situation is a crook and a criminal. Well, Pence was on the floor screaming to go to war when he was in Congress with Iraq. He was one of the freaking instigators over there. So then you make him your vice president? It's just ridiculous. He hired Bolton. He hired Abrams. He signed the CARES Act. He promoted the jab. Operation Warp Speed, fam. And by the way, China. I mean, he's done all these things that he shows us who his true colors are. So, I mean, let's not act like he's something different. The language might be a little different. He might be a little bit better than the others, but it's still the same shit and just different clothing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he would go to war with China, and he is obviously still sees Russia as an adversary rather than a neighbor. And you're going to see the difference in rhetoric with countries who consider themselves equals and allies versus how we talk. And again, he may not be as anti-Russia as the Democrats right now, but if he gets in office, I guarantee you, if there is a desire to be at war with Russia, he will be. And it seems like the pivot is to China. And more than anything, neocons are ready to go to war with China. And that is just a complete and total suicide mission for the entire world, because they can't win a war with China. They can't even win a war with Russia. They're not going to win a war with China. So, yeah, and you're right. He's pretty much pushing the fact that we should be setting the tone for the rest of the world rather than cooperating. And again, I want to show everybody the difference in language to how he talks versus how Putin and Xi talk. Completely different way of addressing other countries.
Fam, have you heard about the whole thing in mods when you just give everybody a wrench? Have you heard about that before?
No.
All right, we'll have to talk about that after. Some people are saying in the chat that their things are not coming up, and I don't know why their statements aren't coming up. Guys, we'll investigate. We'll see what's going on, and we'll look further down the rabbit hole.
We're not muting anybody or anything on
What's
our end.
That?
We're not restricting anybody on our end. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess that YouTube is doing some shit, and we just got to figure it out. I'll take a look into it. Me and Fam will look into it. We'll talk about it right now. Guys, do us a favor. Share it out. If you have a chance and you can be a Rockfin member for just $14.99 a month, It gives you everybody's, not just ours, but everybody's premium content across the board. That's where we like to show our premium content because that's the way the system works. So if you can go over there and join Rockfin, you can also leave a couple bucks over there as well. So that's really nice. If not, Rumble is rocking. We're rumbling over there. There are 60 people watching on Rumble. We've been growing the channel. We have over 1,600 followers now. We're looking to get close to 2,000. And I don't know if you know this, fam. On Rockfin, we have close to 37,000, I believe. I will take a look real quick. I think we just went over the other day. We are at 37,000 followers. So thank you guys. Thank you very much for helping us build that platform. That has been our free speech platform, and we are rocking premium style. We are on YouTube today. We will be on YouTube as long as we're not talking about COVID or elections, because that's when they censor us or demonetize us. We've been demonetized for close to 3 years. So please do us a favor and go over to those other platforms, and you can hang out on both channels and watch the Combo Couch, fam. Fam, China, right? China. Talking about Xi Jinping. So Xi Jinping and China just brokered a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, something that Soleimani was working on before they whacked him. And China got it done, and that spells a lot of trouble financially for the United States, unless they want to change its behavior, which I doubt they will. But that is what's going on over there. So the same thing is said to be true when it comes to possibly China brokering a ceasefire deal between Ukraine and Russia. But guess what, fam? Our warhawks here in the United States won't let that happen. It's just ridiculous. So take a look at this one right here. White House says it opposes a ceasefire in Ukraine. The U.S. is against any potential Chinese efforts to broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine as Xi is headed to Moscow. The White House has come out against a ceasefire in Ukraine ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's trip to Moscow to potentially mediate between Russia and President Vladimir Putin and his counterpart in Kiev. Xi is due to arrive on Moscow on Monday, which he did, and is expected to speak virtually to the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Green Screen Zelensky following his talks with Vladimir Putin. Xi's trip comes after Beijing released a 12-point peace plan for Ukraine that called for the two sides to cease hostilities and for peace talks to begin. Zelensky expressed openness to China's proposal, but was immediately rejected by President Biden. President Biden said, "We don't support calls for a ceasefire right now. Can I have my cookies?" White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said on Friday, according to Newsweek, "We certainly don't support calls for ceasefires that would be called for by the PCR in a meeting in Moscow that would simply benefit, Russia."
Yeah. So I want to hear a blanket statement, but I think you have a video before that, right?
I do have John Kirby because John Kirby did appear on Fox over the weekend, and this is what he said.
That if coming out of this meeting, there's some sort of call for a ceasefire, well, that's just going to be unacceptable because all that's going to do, Mike, is ratify Russia's conquest to date. All that's going to do is give Mr. Putin more time to refit, retrain, reman, and try to plan for renewed offensives at a time of his choosing. We hope, and we've said this before, that President Xi will call and talk to President Zelensky because we believe the Chinese need to get the Ukrainian perspective here. That if coming out of this meeting, there's some sort of call for a ceasefire.
Let me break it to this moron. She doesn't think that Zelensky is worth talking to. Why would China have to deal with the biatch of the United States? That's all Zelensky is. He's not in charge. Ukraine isn't even a country anymore. Ukraine, again, it stopped being a democratic country in 2014 when the United States took control and meddled in their elections and intervened. So why the hell would Xi actually go and speak to Zelensky, first of all? Second of all, he says that all of this, it would just give Putin more time to stop and get more troops and blah, blah, blah. Russia does not want to continue in this conflict. Russia literally does not want. Do you know what Russia could be doing right now with all this, instead of being focused on this conflict? They have zero desire to really continue this conflict and take over the entirety of Europe, like these people have been saying. That's what NATO wants to do. That's what NATO has been doing. That's actually, again, projection. If it were up to Russia, they would end this tomorrow. The only thing they do want is, of course, assurances, because the Minsk Accords 1 and 2 completely disrespected NATO's words of not expanding eastward completely. Just, they didn't respect that. So they want assurances. Russia wants to make sure that this won't happen again. Now, because of what NATO has been doing, giving weapons, sending leopards, and all this other shit to Ukraine, they need more assurances that this won't happen again. They can't just leave Ukraine full of Nazis, fascists, and controlled by the United States. They need to ensure that Ukraine would remain neutral. They need to ensure that it's way beyond its borders, so this wouldn't happen again. They would need assurances. That's the reality. That doesn't mean Russia doesn't want this war to stop. Russians in general want to be able to travel and not be excluded from going into places, needing a visa in places where they didn't need a visa before, getting told that, they're unwanted from everywhere, getting their literature burned, and all of this stuff that's happening. Like, nobody wants that. They want people to go to Ukraine. They want to be able to open up the airport in the south so people could actually go, to like Donbass, and it would take a fraction of the time than it does to get there now. Nobody wants this war here. The reality that they're painting to Western audiences is that Putin wants this war to last forever, when really the only people that want this war to last forever are the defense manufacturers in the United States and the US, who's making a lot of money with this expensive oil that they have. That's who wants this war to go on forever.
Fam, your favorite guy, we're going to play him right now, Mr. Antony Blinken. Let's take a look, see what he's got to say.
And a ceasefire now, without a durable solution, would allow President Putin to rest and refit his troops and
can you turn it up?
start the war at a time more advantageous to Russia.
I have no control over that.
By any tactical move by Russia, supported by China or any other country, to freeze the war on its own terms. Such a move will violate the UN Charter and defy the will of 141 countries who have condemned Russia's war in the United Nations General Assembly. And a ceasefire now.
You don't? There's a volume button right there.
Yeah, it was all the way up. You can see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was all the way up, but I mean, I used to have control with the soundboard. I can probably maybe fix that eventually. We'll see. But should I play it one more time?
Yeah, please. Yeah, because I was distracted.
Okay.
Without a durable solution. And a ceasefire now, without a durable solution, would allow President Putin to rest and refit his troops and then restart the war at a time more advantageous to Russia. The world should not be fooled by any tactical move by Russia, supported by China or any other country, to freeze the war on its own terms. Such a move would violate the UN Charter and defy the will of 141 countries who have condemned Russia's war in the United Nations General Assembly. And a ceasefire now, without a durable solution, would allow President Putin to rest and refit his troops.
Fam, once again, going to the fact you're muted, but saying that it's all about Putin again. If we allow him to do a ceasefire, he's going to rest his troops. Like, this is such a big fucking lie, because right now his troops don't need to be rested. They've used 20% of their troops, if that, and they're surrounding Bakhmut and they're winning the war. We've heard this from people like General McGregor, Scott Ritter. Like, this shit is Ukraine's not in a position to win. And in fact, I saw something today that said Poland is getting ready to amp up and see if they can possibly, fill the void where Ukrainians will be left hanging, because there'll be so many deaths in there. And pretty much you see the videos on the streets. They're grabbing Ukrainians from wherever and they're throwing them to the front line.
Yeah, this is essentially the same argument that the other, what's his name, had, because they're just saying, well, Putin will win if this is allowed. But if it was anybody else wanting a ceasefire, if it wasn't Russia, they would be, and they were like, no, they would say, oh, they don't want peace. It's just because Russia is saying, yeah, we're willing to listen, we're willing to go at this. And they know that Russia isn't just going to say, yeah, Ukraine can have, the entire of the Donbass back, they can have Crimea, they can have. That's what they mean. Like, obviously Russia's not going to do that. Crimea had already made that vote years ago. They decided to be a part of the Russian Federation years ago. Why is that not respected when we're talking about sovereignty? When we're talking about what the people of the Donbass voted for last year, why is that not respected? So again, like, what they want is for Russia to stop existing. And they want Russia to be like, yeah, so okay, Ukraine can be a part of NATO. You can put your weapons on our border. You can come in here and tell us how to govern and what to do, and we'll totally do what you say. That's their idea of a negotiation. Russia's not going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. They're never going to do that. They're just not. It's just impossible. And that's why they know that the ceasefire would be contingent upon Russia really saying Ukraine must be neutral. Donbass and all these territories are off limits. They're part of the Russian Federation. Blah, blah, blah. Like, stay away from our border, etc. And they don't want to do that. So,
and I agree with you. Why would they have to go talk to Zelensky when Zelensky's not even making the decisions? At one point, Zelensky had been there was Natalie, the old prime minister, fam. He had spoken to Zelensky. Spoken to Putin, brokered a deal of sorts, and the West said no. There is no peace whatsoever. You can't do that, and they said you can't do that. So why would they talk to the person who's not even allowed to make a decision for his own country? They need to talk to the West. So that's why it is what it is, and that's why we're at where we're at. By the way, guys, do us a favor, share the Rockfin. We're up to 40 premium members. That is awesome. We're close to 100 people. Where are we at over on our Rumble, guys? Come on, 77. Let's get it up to 100, fam. I put the link in your Twitter DM, and I also put it in the chat if you want to share it out. Let's get over 100 people today. That would be great. On YouTube, we're hanging out about how many people we got on YouTube, fam? 222. 22222. But let's get to our next subject, fam, and that is Xi. Did I say it right? She arrives in Moscow, fam.
Yeah, so I said, while the U.S. pushes against a ceasefire with Ukraine, as we just stated, and the Western economy is on the brink of collapse, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Moscow to meet with Putin for talks on their growing economic relationship and the irreversible multipolar world. That's what she said. Now, there he is arriving in the video. You guys can see. So I want to read some, fam, of what I wrote on the thread, because it's important. To show.
Should I just put this really quick though? You got to see him. He's a pimp. Look at that rug they put on the thing, fam.
Yeah, the red carpet.
There he is. And I don't know why there's nobody with a plate of caviar and a shot of vodka arriving. Like, here you go.
That was later, fam. I'm sure when he went, he
got
that. Okay, so she said China and Russia are good neighbors and reliable partners. This is what he said on his arrival. He said, in a world far from calm, China is ready with Russia to stand guard over international law. Fam, what are you doing?
What thread do you want me to read?
It's literally the one from the combo couch, fam.
Right here's the combo couch. So there's nothing in the thread.
Yes, there is.
Where?
In this, the description of the tweet.
This is the tweet.
Go up. That.
Okay. Gotcha. That's not the thread, right? Are we using the right terminology? It's not the thread. That's the description of the tweet. Yeah. You got me confused.
Anyway, so she also noted that in a world far from calm, China is ready with Russia to stand guard over international law. And so just so you guys know, the meeting will last 3 days. So today was day 1, tomorrow will be day 2, and Wednesday is day 3. And the timing isn't a coincidence. This is his first visit to any country since he was reelected. And according to Putin, Russia and China's ties are at the highest level in their history. And she has emphasized that a shift towards a multipolar world is irreversible. So these are important things when they talk, and they talked for over 5 hours. So that's pretty big. I mean, Putin and Lavrov will often have lengthy conversations, but this is a very lengthy conversation. And these are the informal talks that just happened. These aren't the formal talks. The more formal talks will happen tomorrow with a delegation of Chinese and Russians coming together and having more of these talks. So here's a little bit more of the information. He arrived at Moscow at the Russian airport. And during the summit, they're going to discuss strategic cooperation in energy and military spheres, as well as the Ukraine conflict. He said he was happy to be back in Russia, stressed the importance of their relations, not just for the nation, but for the nations, but for the international community. And he said he's ready to defend with resolve the UN-centric international system. The two countries would endeavor to abide by true multipolarity to foster a multipolar world with democratized international relations to encourage the development of global affairs in a direction that would be more just and rational. Blah, blah, blah. And then the main course of talks will take place Tuesday, as I said. He's going to also meet with the prime minister, and then they're going to have negotiations in expanded format. They're going to sign documents outlining bilateral cooperation, including 2 major joint statements. And yeah, this is a historic visit, blah, blah, blah. And then Ukraine's going to be a huge topic. So I also want to emphasize when they say they want to uphold multilateral or multipolarity, international, blah, blah, blah. This is something we discussed with Camilla when she was here, and we were talking about Brazil. The majority of countries, including China, including Russia, still have this idea that the UN is a symbol of something that could bring the world to peace. So they're going to mention the UN positively. This is why they have the UN. People testify at the UN, right? Security Council. This is why the UN is always held up as this like higher entity. I don't think that. I think that the UN is literally working for the West and has literally just pretty much whitewashed their crimes. I think they're absolutely useless, and they literally don't represent anything. But the diplomatic world, in terms of leadership in Russia, China, Brazil, everybody pretty much, I think save maybe like one of our more radical friends in the global south, really look at the UN as something worthy. Again, I don't, but that's just the reality. And so this is why you say international order, they mean the UN. So this is what he said. He said the shift, no single country should dictate the international order. And he said a shift to a multipolar world is irreversible. So, that's that.
There it is, fam. Xi Ping. Sorry. I love saying that stuff, fam. I got some more stuff for you right here.
Yeah, so let me check this here.
This is the irreversible comment.
Yeah, this is the irreversible comment, and I just wanted to let me see where we're at. If you just go down a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So he said the world today is going through profound changes unseen in a century. And he wrote this in an article published Sunday. The historical trend of peace, development, and win-win cooperation is unstoppable. The prevailing trends of world multipolarity, economic globalization, and greater democracy in international relations are irreversible. And Putin said The world faces traditional and non-traditional security challenges, as well as damaging acts of hegemony, domination, and bullying. He added that countries around the world are eager to find cooperation way out of the crisis and to try to get along through a long, torturous, and global economic recovery.
Oh, the international community has recognized that no country is superior to others. And this is what you were just saying. No model of governance is universal, and no single country should dictate the international order. The common interest of all humankind is in the world that is united and peaceful rather than divided and volatile. And that is so huge, fam, because it just says it's a shift right now. And this is, I mean, what appears to be, the Chinese and the Russians saying for once and for all, putting their foot down, says you're not going to dictate what the world is going to do. This is no longer about you calling the shots. This is something that we were talking about on that little fundraiser. There was a couple people who jumped in, and one person had a suggestion and said, well, I do have a solution because, Jason Burmis had mentioned there's nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. And this person was like, yeah, move to China, move to Russia. There's your chance, because they want to move away from this unipolar type of world, this dictatorship of, what's wanted by the West, and that you would have a fighting chance in these countries. Now, there were some disagreements there about if it's true or not, where we go from there. I said I'm going to Nicaragua because I know for sure Nicaragua is not part of the WEF or any of this bullshit, and you can catch me in Nicaragua. But I mean, there are conversations about that. Is this real? Is this designed? Is this a design universal one world way to move everybody into a one world governance, or is this China and Russia saying no? We're going to make rules and laws and live beyond our own national sovereignty, cooperating with other countries, not forcing them to do what we want them to do. And this is the new way forward. So, I mean, there's a lot of yeah. Good, fam.
Well, I just wanted to say something on what you just said, because Vanessa, Bealey, and I think we need to do a whole live stream just like debunking this idea that Russia and China are just part of the same agenda to like enslave everybody. I'm vehemently opposed to that from the beginning. I've been vehemently opposed to that because it literally it's very reductionist thinking that they just agree because literally what Russia is fighting against is the opposite of what the United States and NATO want. It's like the opposite. They don't want the same things. And this has been a topic where people have been saying, people who have never been to Russia, by the way, people who literally don't understand the government of Russia. Oh yes, but they're dealing with tyranny and stuff in Moscow and blah blah blah. Like 2020, I remember even Peter Lavelle mentioning this in 2020, how they were free of masks there and how people were just fine and kids were playing in the streets. That was not the case for us, especially living in LA. And I know people here were saying the same thing too. And I've seen it, and I've seen the conversations held here. A lot of people did not get the vaccine. A lot of people had their own doubts, even including about Russia and their handling of it as well. A lot of people have been extremely cautious about what's going on with the World Economic Forum. There is more of a digitalization here in terms of how the government runs. I had to get my fingerprints done. It was done the old-fashioned way with black ink. It was not done digitally anymore. I think they changed that recently. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but I do know that when I first got here, digital fingerprints. A few months later, it is not that anymore. I don't see the same type of like behavior that I see in the United States. In fact, it's a little bit more outdated here. It's more Soviet, and that for better or worse. But that's just not where it's going. Vanessa says the same thing about Syria. How do you think Syria is just going to come in? And the only way they would do that is if they were conquered, essentially. And so I just have a hard time. And, Matt Ehret has spoken about this at length regarding China. And it's just is not adding up for me. And so
you would have been proud of me, fam. There was a moment too, and it was kind of interesting because Taylor Hudak was in there. Me and Taylor got to see each other for the first time in a long time. And Taylor Hudak and Johnny Vedmore were kind of agreeing, but both China and both Russia are moving to this digital age, where they could be weft up as F. And I said, well, that's debatable, guys, because Putin has been removed from every single website of the
Yeah.
WEF. He's been taken off their platform, so he's not there. And I think that, a lot of people will say like, oh, well, look what's just going on in Ukraine and Russia. It's two oligarchs fighting each other, or two oligarchic powers. And I said,
Right.
well, you could say that about Putin, maybe that he's got a lot of money or whatnot. But for me personally, I look at him as more of a nationalist, and he's going to do what's right for his people in Russia.
Right.
And I'm going to look like I see that Zelensky is completely just a puppet who doesn't care about his people, doesn't care about his countrymen. He's just a complete puppet of the West. So there's a big difference there. So I think he would have been really proud of me, because there's really a lot of smart men and people in the room. And we got Johnny Vedmore there and Taylor. And I'm like, wait a second. They might not be moving down that path. And then one of the other guests jumped in kind of to agree with me. It's just because they're moving in a technocratic fashion doesn't mean that it's going to be the same way to enslave people. There's a reason for a digital banking system. There's a reason for these things.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you want to embrace technology in certain ways. And just because the United States and the West are moving this way to digitally enslave people doesn't necessarily mean that China and Russia are following suit.
I think technology is going to happen whether we like it or not. Like, this is just my thing. Like, unless we literally have an apocalypse where we destroy all forms of technology, or literally pretty much just get rid of all the technology, or you go and live outside of it, right? Outside of society. If you want to do that, sure. I have no problem with people want to do that. In fact, I think that's actually not a bad idea, to pass everything that's going on and grow your own food and do your own thing. But I think this idea that all governments are bad I see it more pushed by Northwestern people who have experienced Europe, who have experienced the United States, because the governments are extremely fascistic and authoritarian, and they haven't really given anything to people. But if you go to like Nicaragua, and you go to like Venezuela, or you go to these countries in Latin America, people don't look at their government necessarily in a negative way. They look at their government as like a friend, or as somebody that can be helpful.
They believe
And
they have
we
some
saw that.
civil servants there, right? Like people that are actually elected to, stand by the will.
We saw it in Nicaragua, right?
Yeah.
With the autonomous zones in
Fam.
Bilby.
Fam, I got it to somebody put us in a chat together, me and Martha Bueno. So we started going at it again. And we were talking about the Nicaraguan elections. And they were like, oh, yeah, they jailed all their people who were running. That would have been. I'm like, no, those people didn't want to disclose their financials. And they were getting money from the NED and all these other groups to thrust upon a coup upon the people. And they did. And that's why they didn't get the run. But yeah, I mean, it's like, and I said this too, closing up that conversation. I said, look, it's okay if you want to look at China and you want to look at Russia and see what they're doing and try to figure out what's what and have an eye on them. But to be overcritical of them, I think that's unnecessary. And the anger and the thoughts and the energy is in the wrong place. We need to take care of our own government. For me, you saying that China is doing wrongful things with their techno-fascism, and same thing with Russia, is like working at McDonald's, running out the front door and screaming at Burger King. It's not your business. Clean your own house, take care of your own problems, and then we can talk. You can have an eye on these countries, but to sit there and point the finger, it's just manufacturing consent, because people take that rhetoric and then they manufacture consent to start a war and actually make claims that China is pulling the strings and controlling all our people here. And that's why it's like the party of individual responsibility. The Conservative Party wants none of it when it comes to our foreign policy. And it is sad. It is really sad.
And the last thing I want to say on that is that when they were talking, when Xi or Putin were talking, they mentioned that they want to respect the sovereignty of each country. That's literally the opposite of what like the US wants. It's like an order where there can be cooperation. They're not saying we're going to all agree on how to govern our countries and we're all going to have a one world government. They're saying we're going to have cooperation, right? And this is them sitting. And now this is a big deal. I got this from Vanessa because she tweeted this out.
Little table?
The little table, right? The little table. So again, I do pay attention to this sort of body language situation. And there are other pictures. Maybe I think they put them in the thread.
Putin is cool as a motherfucker. He puts the hand up, and I just like the dude. He's like one of my favorite leaders in the world. I've always liked Putin. You know what I'm saying? And the United States has no one to blame but themselves from him being the president, because they're the ones who pushed to have freaking what's his name in there, the drunk, the alcoholic Boris Yeltsin. And when he was just awful and screwed up, the hardliners in Russia said, we need to get somebody in there that's going to be think for Mother Russia and not turn their back on the West. And they chose Putin. And now he's done the job that the people of Russia wanted him to do.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people use that against Putin, saying he wanted to be a part of NATO, which he did, saying that, you know, he was handpicked by the West. He was essentially via Yeltsin, right? But
Yeltsin
what
was
they
not
didn't,
Putin.
well, but they didn't count. What they didn't count on the fact is that Putin literally is not an ideologue. The dude is like, you know, he came from the Soviet Union and he literally has lived through the fall of the Soviet Union. So he's not, he's seen what it was before and he's also seen what happened after it. So I think that gives him a unique perspective. If he had been too young, I think it would have changed things a little bit, or way older. But the reality is he literally wanted to be Russia wanted to be a part of NATO for a while because they thought that they would be looked on as equals. Because the idea was that NATO was supposed to be kind of like the UN, like this agency that would just look at each other as equals and you would all just cooperate, pretty much a multipolar kind of idea. But he ended up realizing that that's not what the United States wanted, that NATO was put there to literally destroy Russia. So Russia couldn't be a part of NATO, because then NATO wouldn't have it wouldn't have anyone to oppose. So that's why, like, so it's not really a thing against Putin or discredits Putin. It's more of like, okay, well, he saw, you know, he went into the World Economic Forum, he went into these places and realized these people are full of shit. They're only looking out for their interests. They're going in a direction we don't want to go to. My people don't want to go in this direction. I'm going to shift. I'm going to get out of this. And that's as simple as that. It's practicality. It's not anything else. And like, and I'm not someone that agrees with Putin on everything. I've never even, had like a Putin, like, I've never thought, oh my God, Putin's my favorite politician or anything like that. But I do see why people really, fam.
Come on now, fam.
Comrade Misty is Putin's buddy, but me, I never. No, I mean, I never liked him before, is what I'm saying. I never thought he was like anything out of the ordinary. He's not a revolutionary that I would look at and be like, oh my God, like, you know how I look at like Daniel Ortega or like Hugo Chavez. Like, I looked at those people. Like, I never looked at Putin was like, yeah, he's, but
what
seeing him now and being here, huh?
What is this here?
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll finish the thought and I'll let you know. Seeing him now and being here and seeing how he is very calm with everything being thrown at him, I respect the guy, and I think the guy, I would take him as a leader for the United States over any of the presidents we have. 100%. 100%.
Sorry to interrupt you. I didn't know you weren't finished with your thought yet. I do apologize.
Yeah, thank you. So rude.
Stop it. Fam, you like my light? Look, my light's going blue. It's going purple.
It's very South Florida of you to have a light like that.
What are you talking about? Look at that. Fam, I'm ready for the French over here. See? I got my...
The French like to party. Did you not see them in the latest video?
Yeah, I know that, fam. They love the party, fam.
So this one is Putin basically telling Xi that Russia's open to negotiations with Ukraine. So this is a video of them meeting after the little table they sat down.
On your proposals to settle the crisis, and we have looked closely on your proposals to settle the crisis unfolding in Ukraine. Of course, we will have the opportunity to discuss these proposals. We do know that you are guided by the principles of justice and respecting the fundamental principles of international law, and you are guided by the principle of indivisible security for all countries. You also may be aware, and you're aware that we are open to negotiations. We have looked closely on your
Yeah, so he's referring to this 12-step proposal that China has put out in a way to achieve peace in Ukraine. So he's letting him know we've looked at your proposal. We're ready to, negotiate for peace. But again, that doesn't mean they're just going to be like, all right, take whatever you want. So
yeah. I think people are they get in this thought process in their minds that they're going to be working together. They're going to go along with everything. No, China and Russia have a history of bad relationships. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't like each other all the time, and one time they kind of hated each other. And so to think that this is just a done deal, that these guys are going to just agree on everything is just incorrect. It's going to take a lot of talk, a lot of conversation. It's going to take a lot of compromise by both parties. You know what I'm saying? To get this done. I think right now, in a way that, Putin probably would want to go along unchecked with his plans to take care of Ukraine because he understands what they're capable of. He understands what the West is trying to do. And for me personally, I don't think that there's any way that a Zelensky government can ever survive. I don't know how they can let them exist as is. But if China comes in there and says, hey, let's calm down, let's get reassurances from all sides, and let's try to find a different way, that's going to be really big. It's not set in stone. It's not as a slam dunk like people are making it out to be. So this is just a beginning process, believe you me. But we have this here, fam. Fuck, I'll never get it right. Do you want to read as it's going along, fam?
Yeah, I can do that. So, dear President Putin, I always call you my friend. I am very pleased at your invitation to visit Russia again.
Especially right after my next re-election.
Мне очень приятно по вашим приглашениям еще раз посетить Россию с государственным визитом. Тем более, сразу после моего очередного переизбрания председателя КНР и в качестве первой страны зарубежного визита я именно выбрал.
As President of the People's Republic of China and I chose Russia as the first country of my foreign visit, you have just remembered that exactly 10 years ago.
首任国家主席之后啊，选择的首选国就是俄罗斯。刚才你
I
提
think
及
the translation's a bit off here, but I think he means
记忆犹新，历历在目。
exactly 10 years ago, I did the same thing. So exactly 10 years ago, he went to Russia as well.
Ровно 10 лет тому назад, когда я впервые стал председателем КНР, также так.
I can see why it takes 5 hours
Как первую страну для моего первого зарубежного визита.
to go through this process.
Вы мне об этом.
You remind me of this, and to this day, those pictures are well preserved in my heart.
В моем сердце.
So he was saying that 10 years ago, he did the same thing. He went to Russia right after his re-election. Now, Prost is right. Russia and China haven't always had good relationships, but in the past few years, their relationship has gotten extremely better, and they're at the highest level than they've ever been. And this has been said by Putin, and it's been alluded to by Beijing as well. And it's not going to stop here. It's going to continue. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I was telling the chat, like, I can see why it took like over 5 hours to do this, because they don't speak the same language. You know, Putin doesn't speak Mandarin and Xi does not speak Russian. So there's got to be a translation in the process. And let me tell you, that can be long and tedious. So, and you have to make sure you get everything right, because things could be lost in translation, and they often are. So, yeah.
Fam, we gotta make sure we get going, because I gotta meet AOC for a little appointment. I might join the military. I don't know if you know about this. Just want to let you know.
Yeah, your girlfriend who you had pizza with.
Who?
Hey, Pasta had pizza with AOC. He's a total Democrat. So
that was a long time ago, fam. Let's not bring up old stuff. Guys, do us a favor: like button, hit the share button, do what you got to do. You know,
I had Chinese with Bernie Sanders. So
yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So, fam, we got to get to our next section over here.
Yes.
Putin, right? Oh my God, fam. This is just fam. The ICC has summoned Putin.
Yeah.
Oh, fam.
So is this the fourth section, I think,
This
right?
is the fourth section.
Yeah, so this section we're going to talk about it's 20 years to the day since Bush and his little minions got us into a war in Iraq. And of course, 20 years to the day. Now, what we're dealing with is them trying to jail Trump over bogus charges and trying to jail also supporting the jailing of the arrest of Putin. Because really, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, the U.S. doesn't recognize it, by the way. This is a fact. The U.S. does not recognize the International Criminal Court. Neither does Russia. And I think China, I believe, they don't recognize that court. So, but the U.S. says they don't recognize it while simultaneously saying that they agree that Putin should be arrested. So Moscow decided to open up a criminal case over this Putin warrant. They're going to investigate, and their investigative committee says the ICC's top prosecutor and its judges acted illegally. So,
well, fam, let's make sure that people understand this, that the United States was all about it. They were all about the ICC. They were part of the whole situation. They're one of the founders, I believe. But when Iraq came around, Bolton wrote the letter to remove them from the ICC before they went into war with Iraq. And that is the United States foreign policy in a nutshell, by the way.
Yeah. So again, rules only apply to me if I want them to. They apply to you more than anything, right? To thee. So in a Telegram post, the committee said that they had opened cases against the ICC as well as the prosecutor and the judges. If you could scroll down a little bit.
Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to find my spot. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. So Ahmad Khan, the prosecutor sent a petition on February 22nd to the ICC pretrial chamber to obtain warrants for the arrest of Putin and Russia's commissioner for children's rights, Maria Belova, whom he accused of being responsible for the illegal deportation of children from Ukraine. His petition was approved by the judges, and Russia said this was obviously illegal, so since there are no grounds for criminal liability. It also pointed to the 1973 UN Protection of Diplomats Convention, which grants heads of state absolute immunity from jurisdiction of foreign countries. And the committee considers Khan's actions a crime under Russian law for knowingly bringing an innocent person to criminal liability, combined with unlawfully accusing a person of committing a grave and especially grave crime. He also charged with preparing an attack on a representative of a foreign state with the intention of complicating international relations. And Russia disregards the ICC warrant as having no legal basis, with ex-president Dmitry Medvedev suggesting it was a sign of the collapse of international law. He also described the ICC as shitty and wanted by nobody, and said it had a poor record of holding high-profile suspects accountable, explicit pro-Western bias, and had failed to investigate U.S. war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq.
And Syria.
The Kremlin has officially reacted calmly to the ICC warrant. Vladimir Putin press secretary Dmitry Peskov told RIA Novosti on Monday that there are already plenty of openly hostile manifestations in relation to both our country and our president, and taking it all to heart would not bring anything good. So they're basically telling them to just kick rocks and eat a bag of Richards, right, fam? But I do have to say, what they're accusing Putin of is they're accusing him of like endangering children and kidnapping children, when literally what was done, and this is a fact, was removing children from these war zones so they wouldn't be killed. That's literally what happened. So they're twisting it and saying Putin kidnapped children, literally removing them from war zones so they wouldn't get shot at, because that's literally what to the people that stayed in those areas and that were pretty much controlled by the Ukrainian army and the Azov battalions. Those people were literally like the children were the ones getting killed. It was a bunch of kids getting killed. So they're basically saying that Putin is like going after children. But
this is the next thing too as well. People have really invested emotionally and energy and time, and they can't find a way to pull away from Bernie Sanders. And since Bernie Sanders has completely bent the knee to the Democratic Party, those same people who bought into Bernie Sanders are still emotionally invested and can't break away from him. They have to go along with what the Democrats are saying in this whole Russia shenanigans, because otherwise, they would have to look in the mirror and say, maybe it is wrong and I'm being moved into a certain position, I'm being manipulated. But since they have bought into Bernie Sanders and they still want to say that Bernie Sanders is their hero, they can't let go, fam. You know what I'm saying? They're emotionally invested and they go along with this rhetoric. And they were talking about this whole situation with the kids and the way Western media was kind of displaying it. And you were talking about this. They were literally taking kids out of a war zone. And Wyatt Reed has talked about it before, and he's talked about it on this show, that most of the refugees that left Ukraine, they ended up where? In Russia. Russia took them in. Okay. And people aren't talking about that, but still the West with their narratives. And it's so funny to see people that when we were on the whole Bernie Sanders train, when he was the outside candidate pushing, our number one enemy was the pharmaceutical companies and the mainstream media, right? Now they've completely bought in, bent the knee to pharmaceutical companies. They're going out there still repeating the same lie that the shot is safe and effective. And they are also buying into all this bullshit news and trying to make Putin out to be the bad guy here because they've bought in simply to Bernie Sanders. Fam, I can't wait to play this video. I didn't even know you had this in the doc. And this is what I talked about on the Critical Hour today. Can we get rolling with it, or do you have something else to say?
No, we'll get rolling with it. I just want to read the Mint Press caption. 20 years ago today, on March 20th, 2003, the United States and its allies, including Britain, launched the invasion of Iraq.
Fam, this aggression will not stand. This aggression will not stand.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign. More than 35 countries are giving crucial support, from the use of naval and air bases to help with intelligence and logistics to the deployment of combat units.
So, the U.S. trying to arrest Putin, the Western world that literally participated on these with these lies, right, and took it into a war, us and the entire world essentially into a war where millions died, and we are still living and seeing the consequences of that conflict in the Middle East today, in the entire region today, and nobody has been held accountable for that.
Over
Bush is literally writing children's
died.
books.
Yeah.
Writing children's books, and he's writing children's books, and he's painting.
Yeah.
You know, and
he's got nice paintwork, fam.
I wouldn't buy it, fam. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't take it for fucking free. And by the way, we're talking over 600,000 dead, at least, low numbers, mostly civilians, a lot of civilians. These were not Iraqi military men like they want you to believe. Yeah, they killed a lot of the Iraqi military, but then we occupied that land and we're still there. We never left. Donald Trump, who was supposed to be the great freaking guy who's the best on foreign policy, he never pulled out of Afghanistan. He never pulled out of Iraq. You know what I'm saying? He continued to go in Syria. We're going to take the oil, fam. Otherwise, ISIS and Al-Qaeda will get it. Yeah, but we're funding ISIS, Al-Qaeda. We started them. We've always armed the most radical groups. And guess who the most radical group is? Us, our military. And I'm not taking away anything for these people who've gone off to fight these wars on a pack of lies, and they've been made to do some horrible things. Then they come home PTSD and kill themselves. I'm here to blame the oligarchs, the government, and the people who wage these illegal wars. And it's laughable that they're going to issue an arrest warrant for Putin for the ICC. I have more here, or George W. Bush, fam, from the Wolfowitz Doctrine. Do you have anything else to say? Because I just want to reiterate, civilians were killed. Remember, we're the only country that's dropped an atom bomb on civilians, and we dropped 2 of them.
Before you play it, fam, to answer the chat, somebody in the chat asked who said that 500,000 dead Iraqi kids were worth it. That was Madeleine Albright, who,
million.
if you recall, Anna Kasparian gave a lovely make-out interview too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
well,
let's play this video.
Just to really quickly too, as well, because we talk about the Rand document, right, and how it already laid out what was going on. We would talk about Wesley Clark, how it was already laid out these countries were going to invade. It was already laid out that we're going to go into Iraq, and Bill Clinton didn't give them a full-scale war, but what he did was sanction the fuck out of them, where almost 1 million Iraqi children died because of it. And Madeleine Albright said, yeah, it was well worth it. But here is George W. Bush, who's got the nerve really to show his face around. Now, that's how desperate the Democrats and the establishment is that they got to go back and get George Bush. If George Bush is your voice of reason on the bench, we're in a lot of fucking trouble.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
Eyewitnesses described what happened when missiles rained down on the Iraqi capital in March 2003. While the attack was anticipated, locals were left traumatized by the sheer scale of the destruction.
It was very difficult for the country and for all Iraqi citizens. On that day, a disaster struck. My nephew was killed in the first strike on that goddamn day. Bush is a criminal. It was his fault. They are all criminals. They trampled on humanity. They hate people. This was to be expected of them. They came to destroy the country, not to protect the citizens of Iraq. It was a cursed time for all Iraqis. We are still feeling the consequences of this.
The world was promised that American soldiers would be welcomed with open arms, with flowers and with sweets, while a swift victory was guaranteed. We are in the square where the Americans tore down the statue of Saddam Hussein. But what many people don't realize is that he was just yards away in the streets behind me watching events unfold. Busloads of people were brought in to create the impression that it was ordinary Iraqis that tore down the statue. It was to create the narrative that the people here supported the US-led invasion. As the US struggled with heavy losses, private military contractors were brought in. But they too were involved in war crimes and atrocities against ordinary Iraqi civilians. Here, in Nisor Square, one of the worst massacres took place at the hands of the notorious Blackwater private military company. As they escorted a US military convoy, the mercenaries opened fire, killing 17 and wounding 20.
The word Blackwater for me as a journalist is associated with something terrifying. I saw people in complete disarray. For example, there was always a risk that any resident could be shot dead on the street. This incident took place in the Al-Kharj area. There was a turmoil. Some passers-by were killed by Blackwater PMC. We went to this place only after the Blackwater left. By then, Blackwater was something terrible for us. This incident was not particularly discussed at the meetings by the government then.
Just 4 Blackwater personnel were charged and jailed, but they were later pardoned by then US President Donald Trump. Blackwater may have changed its name, but not its practices. Under the name Academy, it was allegedly involved in the training of far-right forces ahead of the conflict in Ukraine. Now, as Constellis, it has a vested interest in liquid natural gas, which many say is the root cause of what has been described as NATO's proxy war. Constellis was bought for $1 billion by investment company Apollo Group in 2016. In September 2020, Apollo Group entered a $5.5 billion real estate investment partnership with the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, one of the world's largest oil companies and a major exporter of liquefied natural gas. In December 2021, ADNOC was invited to enter a joint venture to create an oil and gas terminal in the Ukrainian port of Odessa for transportation to Western countries. The announcement came a month after chief executive of the Ukrainian state energy company Naftogaz, Yuri Vitrenko, told an Abu Dhabi energy conference that he hopes the Russian Nord Stream 2 pipeline into Europe, which bypasses Ukraine, would not be approved. He said that Ukraine stood to lose $2 billion per year, about 1.5% of its GDP, if the Russian pipe was operational, claiming that Nord Stream 2 is actually putting the whole continent and global security at risk. One expert says these organizations operate in a grey area, often outside the law.
The Blackwater case has not been solved. I think the Americans are investigating the case, but insignificant information about the investigation procedure and compensation issues comes from different sources. I heard that some citizens received compensation while others did not. All this is caused by the weakness of the government in protecting its citizens.
We now know that the war was based on a lie. There were no WMDs, and Saddam had nothing to do with 9/11. But the legacy of the invasion continues 20 years after the first missiles were fired.
Fam, it was all built on a pack of lies. And this is, once again, you outsource your military to these groups. It gets less accountability for yourself, less on your shoulders, and you can still push your death and destruction through. That's why they do it. 20 years ago today, fam, it's just amazing. And I think there's this idea, when they would start, we had Don DeBar on plenty of times, and we talk about these wars and how people showed up in the streets to push back against this war, but eventually it turned into Bush's war. And it became a partisan situation when, in fact, we know, and I think the videos you got come up will link a lot of Democrats to this particular war as well. Correct? You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. Fam, never silence.
I muted you too.
Voice.
It was definitely a bipartisan effort, for sure. And just like all wars, they're a bipartisan effort. And people can't forget that. I think they tend to forget that when the other party is in power, but it's really the same State Department. It doesn't change.
Doesn't. And Victoria Nuland, right, who's now working for the Biden administration, I believe she was Dick Cheney's assistant at the time. So she got up close and personal to see what was going on. The same people were involved. Mike Pence pushed this situation. Donald Trump was acting like he was anti-Iraq war, and he hired a guy who was on the floor pushing for the goddamn war. And of course, and this is what this did for me, fam. The Iraq war is why I became a Democrat, because I listened to the mainstream media. I read the New York Times a little bit at the time. I read a lot of the sports stuff, but then I started transitioning over. And the New York Times was pushing this war. And that was supposed to be the liberal people at the time. But what I didn't pay enough attention to, fam, was what was going on in Congress and what was going on the Senate floor. And we made a video of this, me and Johnny. Remember, we did it with the whole Xing every single time a lie came out of Biden's mouth. You got anything to say, fam, or should I just let it roll? Do you want to read this?
Yeah, so today marks 20 years that Biden has escaped facing any consequence for helping Bush lie us into the disastrous and illegal Iraq war that directly killed 300,000 and indirectly killed countless more. So let's take a listen.
I didn't believe go to war because I didn't believe he had those nuclear weapons. I didn't believe he had those weapons of mass destruction.
The reason he poses a growing danger to the United States and its allies is that he possesses chemical and biological weapons and is seeking, with his $2 billion a year illegally skimmed from the UN Fund for Food, his Oil for Food program, for Peace program, that he is seeking nuclear weapons.
The fact he could sit there and go, I didn't believe he had the weapons. Like,
that
you
was
were the leading voice in the fucking Senate, fam, to push this shit.
That was the other Biden, fam. It wasn't him.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Biden 2 or 3? It
was 2.
Yeah. So while all these other guys run free, a man by the name of Julian Assange, who created WikiLeaks, who created a platform in which people can blow the whistle and remain anonymous of sorts, is still in jail to this day for simply publishing the truth. Julian Assange, the Iraq war was a result of lies. It's lies by the big media machine, the various institutions that get too comfortable and too close to the table of power, the very table that they are meant to be reporting on and policing and getting into the historic record.
Free Julian Assange.
You know, fam, the question is when Garland and Dr. Wilmer Leon asked me today, do you think the media was partially responsible and should they pay a price and admit that they were, that they were wrong? I'm like, they weren't wrong because they were doing their job. That's what they were meant to do. They were meant there to push the propaganda from the military industrial complex and the government that were trying to lie us into this war. And they did. and people went along with it. Remember
that's not
when
their job, though. That's not the job of the media. The media is supposed to be, as Julian said, they're
be.
supposed to be holding people accountable. They're supposed to be,
worth a start.
questioning. Yes, but that's not what they do. Their job has become to be propagandist.
Yeah.
So they were doing their job for the propagandists, but they were not doing their job as media. And I do think they should be held accountable because they haven't apologized.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the apologies from all of these people.
Nor will they. Same people doing the same shit.
So the Iraq War is one of humanity's greatest crimes. 20 years on, not a single political leader has been held to account. Yeah, if the media isn't held to account, these political leaders will not. So here's some pictures from what we did and how much we cheered for this, by the way. And make no mistake, we would cheer again if this was the villain. The Democrats would cheer if this was the Russian army and we were actually directly at war with them. They would cheer if this was the Chinese. But guess what? They're not going to be able to do that to those countries. That's the thing. Russia and China are not Iraq. They're not Syria. They're not these. They have more resources available to them, just the way it is right now. And in a way, that's why these other countries that have been victimized by the U.S. are opening their relationships with these other countries, because, like Russia and China, because they're saying, "Oh, okay. Why not? You know what we went through. So this is a new opportunity."
Fam, Fam, I got to go because I got to make this. What time is this? Am I going to miss this because I want to go? I want to eat more pizza with AOC.
Speaking of war criminals, so Misty put this out, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, representative of New York's whatever district, Joint Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Adriano Espaillat at the Student Services Fair.
To help students connect with the U.S. Department of Education or our U.S. Service Academies, internship opportunities, and more. And that was from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Fam, I missed it. It's going on right now. God damn it. It says register here. We'll be joined by a special guest from the U.S. Naval Academy, the U.S. Air Force Academy, the U.S. Military Academy, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, the U.S. Department of Education, former interns, and last year's winner of the Congressional App Challenge. Everybody call this number right now. Call our office at 718-662-5970. Fam, that's 718-662-5970. 7-0, fam.
Wow. So is anybody surprised? I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised, but we're not surprised because she's voted for every war and for funding weapons to Ukraine. So am I surprised that she's going this route? No, but I think a lot of the people who defend her all the time, how do you defend this? It's not right. This isn't like another country. This is your country. You progressives who are so critical about the war, right? And you say you want peace and you want to end this and blah blah blah. You're okay with her doing this with recruiting kids, kids to go to fight wars with NATO's wars. One right now, we're waging a proxy war with Russia and trying to start a war with China via Taiwan. And instead of speaking out, because a real progressive, if the word progressive in the United States represented an ounce of what it means to actually be progressive in the definition of the word, she wouldn't be doing this. She'd be saying, first of all, she would have been at one or two of the protests that took place in DC recently, at the very least, the one this past Saturday that people went to. She would have been there and saying, no more funding of NATO. We need to stand against this. She wasn't even smart enough to do that, by the way, and just pretend that she opposes war. She's just full out embracing the U.S. military industrial complex, full on. There's no denying it. You can't defend her anymore. There's no defense. I don't see how they could defend this pasta. How they could twist themselves into pretzels defending her stance on Ukraine. I could see that. But I don't see how you could defend her going and holding, not just holding an event for military recruitment for college kids. How do you defend that?
Fam.
Can somebody tell me how they're going to defend her?
Because they're going to just do it. They're so much emotionally involved. You know what I'm saying? Listen, there
Yeah,
were
how?
times where people were like, when Bernie Sanders started being openly fucking bending the knee, there were a lot of people like, well, how's Fiorelli going to feel about this? I'm like, well, you'll see. You'll see, because she's going to call it like it is, because you're going to get the information and you're going to see what's up. And sure enough, you did. A lot of people did, but there were some people who didn't, fam. There are some people to this day, and it's like I talked about earlier, since they bought in so much emotionally invested into Bernie Sanders, they then have to buy into the Democratic Party, because he's a complete Democratic Party cuck now. And so doing that, they had to buy completely into the war. And if they're bought completely into the war, that means they're going to be completely into AOC. We're having a recruiting party, because it's necessary now, right? Well, we have a situation now. China's getting out of hand, fam. They're sending balloons over here. They sound like neocons.
Yeah.
They sound like fucking neocons. And they will defend this shit.
I thought Rachel's tweet was good. 20 years after the U.S. invaded Iraq, within Senator Biden's vote of support and started the brutal war that killed more than 1 million Iraqis, the Biden administration says it is firmly opposed to a ceasefire in Ukraine. The war may have changed, but the warmongers have not. And that is what we really need to understand here. The war may have changed, but the warmongers have not. It's the same people in power, the same mentality, the same State Department that continues ruling us, right? I mean, this happened when we were, kids, Rachel and I, and now as adults here, as journalists, the same mentality is set up. It is just really saying, hey, guys, it doesn't matter who you vote for in the 2024 election. It really doesn't matter. You can have your arguments, you can have your fun and pretend that it's going to change something, but it really isn't, because the people in power are the same State Department warmongers that haven't been held accountable not once for what they did. And they won't be held accountable unless you hold them, unless the people do something about it. It's not going to happen through a legal process, because the system protects them. That legal system protects them. It doesn't protect you. It protects them.
Law and order is there for them, not for you, for their protection. And it's just amazing, because there are some people we know from the Birdie Diners that I'm kind of got into it with Facebook, and they're just like, they sound like a neocon. They're spouting out CIA propaganda, like literally like State Department talking points. It's like, holy shit. And why? Because Bernie Sanders said, and Putin needs to be addressed. He cannot just do what he wants to do. Like, I mean, and that was the whole thing, because they put him in a position for so many years. He's a Putin puppet. He's a form of the Kremlin, and he just took it so much. Either he was threatened, or he has just been beat over the head so many times that he's just completely complying. But he's not getting anything done. He has no following. His movement's dead. Unlike Donald Trump, whose movement is still going now, despite him going Operation Warp Speed, right? Like, and the CARES Act, where he just gave out all this freaking money to all the corporations in the bank. But it's ridiculous. I can tell you this much, fam. There were more people at this event right here than there were in one spot put together for all the people celebrating that Biden won. Remember, people try to tell us, well, there was all these people celebrating Biden. I'm like, no, there wasn't. There was a small little hand of cucks with masks on outside running around screaming Biden Harris, Biden Harris. But this rally, fam, tell us about this.
So there was a AMLO rally in Mexico City, and it was honoring the 85th anniversary of the expropriation of oil reserves. And in this rally, AMLO condemned U.S. politicians who have been threatening Mexico's sovereignty with calls for invasion. We know who he's talking about, right? Highlighting sovereignty is respect for the independence and dignity of peoples. He said this in his tweet. And this is a picture of that. Yeah. And they marched all the way to a Zócalo in Mexico City. And and Terry was saying, our friend Terry, who is in Mexico City, was saying that they had overflow. They had to provide overflow, and people just kept walking and walking. They had closed the roads going in far out because people it was too many people. So they had to walk a lot. So,
Viva la Mexico! Viva la
AMLO! There's, I think, did I put 2 tweets? Because there should have been 2.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the other one I wanted to show. Yeah.
I got it right now. I'm doing my best here, fam. Please don't fire me.
No, fam. I just wasn't sure.
Don't fire me.
I want to read the caption, fam. The caption of this tweeter.
David,
So
see you.
So I'll translate it. Listen well, gringos.
Listen up,
Well,
you fucking gringos.
Mexico is an independent and free country, not a colony or a protectorate of the U.S. The rancid Piti-Yankee neoliberals are on fire. AMLO called and blew up the Zocalo. Viva Mexico, damn it. Viva Mexico, carajo, is what he said. Okay.
México es un país independiente y libre, no una colonia ni un protectorado de Estados Unidos. México es un país independiente y libre, no una colonia ni un protectorado de Estados Unidos.
The Republicans trying to go in there, the neocons, anybody. I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans. Mexico ain't having it, guys. AMLO's there right now. I'm less worried. The minute he leaves, I'll be more worried. We'll see.
Exactly.
We've been asking that question.
That's
We've been
the
asking
problem.
that question. Yeah.
That's the
Sometimes
problem.
you can't, that's always, will the next leader be as good as the former one? It's hard to find a good leader. So we're hoping that what's Mexico's been doing has been great for a lot of people. It's really and Mexico, of course, refuses to really do what the U.S. wants it to do in regard to a lot of foreign policy. So they're not liking it. Anyway, that was it, guys. I have to go help my sister on her college paper. Don't tell her teacher.
I'm not cool with illegals, but I always want to smile with Mexicans. Easy, let me tell you something. We wouldn't have so many illegals if we weren't down there invading their countries, taking their natural resources, thrusting upon the most radical people within their governments to take control so we can have them destabilized on the US dollar. And therefore, they have to come to this country. So if we stop invading them, then they'll stop invading us.
And also the infestation with the CIA and the DEE and all this stuff. Like, I mean, and look, they're right next to the United States, and they've been able to have a president like AMLO that's nationalized their lithium, that's really done a lot of actual progressive things for the country compared to what we know as a progressive. That's what I would call progressive, not like, and we've been to Mexico like 3 times last year. We were in Mexico at least. I think I was at least 3 times, but it's been
good, fam. Sorry.
No, go ahead, read it.
I have you a little bit. I don't have the headphones for this, so I have you a little bit low here on the computer here. So I'm sorry for interrupting today. I got to get a headset so I can put your volume up because I don't want it echoing inside the
It is echoing. I can hear it.
I know, that's why I have to I have you lower and I keep putting you up and low, and I'm not getting the timing right, but I'm going to put the headphones on coming up. I'm going to get some headphones so it won't happen again. But it says, "Sir, I've played a role in immigration. You're a little off." What am I a little bit off of, Easy? You tell me. Do we not have 82 bases in Latin America? Do we not fund the craziest, most radical groups out there? What about the Iran-Contra? That never happened. We weren't funding the Contras to fight the Sandinistas. We don't do this. Do we not just intervene in Bolivia? Wasn't Marco Rubio on the phone whipping up intervention? Do we not coup Manuel Zelaya from Honduras? Is that not true as well? Did we not just do what we did to Pedro Castillo when we sent Lisa Kennedy in there to make sure that we could obtain the lithium? You tell me where I'm a little bit off. You educate me, because we went to Honduras and people told us straight up, we involved ourselves in their government in 2017. And even the OAS said the election was so off, but the Trump administration was okay with it. So what did they do? They said, we had friends that said, screw you, we're coming to America. Don DeBar has said it before. Why are we so mad at these people when they come looking for their shit? They're here. We extract their resources. We thrust the monetary system on there. And we also don't want anybody to see, any other of our people to see a socialist government, a secular government thriving. And I'm not saying that socialist is the answer, but we know damn well that our government is infested with anti-communist, anti-socialist people. And what difference does it make if another country decides to have that type of collective government? It's their government, not ours. So please, you educate me, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Somebody said we like their drugs. We like our drugs. We're the #1 consumers of opioid. Like, no other country is having. Maybe the UK is having a similar crisis. but no other country is having an opioid crisis like the United States, and that's big pharma for you. You go to the United States. I haven't seen a single child in Russia that is on like half the medication as the kids are in the United States. Let me tell you, like in the United States, they give you pills for everything. Here, it's a little bit more like, no, it's a lot more. You don't just get Adderall. You don't just get, a Xanax or this or that or whatever fucking shit everybody's on, these, antidepressants and stuff. That doesn't happen in most countries, by the way. My dad always said, these are American problems. He said these are people, they have nothing to do, that they create problems. I don't necessarily agree with that, but you go to Latin America, nobody's is saying that they have this or that and making videos of how they have this and they have that. Like they don't have time to worry about that shit because they're so worried about what they're gonna eat, who's gonna bomb them, who's gonna coup them, what's going on here. That's the mindset that you live in. And I think Americans are far too privileged, and they think like, oh, these people are coming here, because they're trying to be criminals. No, these people are coming here because we stole, as Pazza said, literally all the resources in their countries. That's why the U.S. doesn't like AMLO, because he nationalized the lithium, because he said, I want the resources of my country to go to my people, so my people stop fucking getting blamed for going into the United States because they don't get to benefit from the resources their country has. But meanwhile, Western Europe and the United States get to benefit from it. And by the way, it doesn't even go to your benefit, to the U.S. citizens in the United States. Majorly, it goes to benefit a few rich people living in the States. That's the shitty part of it. They pin you, the working class American citizen, against the working class Mexican, against the working class whatever. And again, it's the same thing they do here. Pin you against the other one. And again, they get away with everything. So
you can always reach out to the couch, right? Hit us up at theconvocouch@gmail.com. I love the easy. I don't know what your real name is, but if you hit me up and let me talk about it, none of that changes that we have a process. Everyone is welcome, just have to be on the books. We don't know who's coming in. They aren't all Mexicans. Okay, so this is this American mentality right here. This is when they say gringos, and they're saying, they're not talking about just white people in particular. They're talking about the gringo mentality that this is. We have a process. It has to be on the books. What about them? Is their process in line with the CIA? The CIA gets to pick their leaders. The American foreign policy apparatus gets to pick their leaders. We get to extract their resources. Like Lana Mishi says, America wants their bananas. That's right. And that's one of the biggest coups, right? So we're talking about in Guatemala, they had a revolution. They had their own government, but the United Fruit Company, the UFC at the time, lobbied the government to go over there and overturn them. And then they couldn't nationalize their bananas anymore because we wanted that resources. And like Fiorella says, so a small group of oligarchs or corporation CEOs, they make the money off those resources. We're not making the money off it. We can grow our own bananas. We have all this farmland out here. We can do our own thing, or we can pay a few bucks more so those people can benefit off their bananas and their natural resources, so they can build roads, hospitals, everything they want. You can't say that we have a process and it has to be on the books when we're not abiding by any of their laws. We're not respecting any of their sovereignty. And we literally have bases all over the place. Literally in Honduras, there's like 3 American bases, one of the biggest bases like that. And it's not the Boy Scouts running things. They wouldn't come here if we weren't fucking around over there. And that's the period thing. So the only thing you can do is hold our country accountable. And guess what? If we weren't screwing around with all these countries, so many people wouldn't even be trying to come over here. They would want to stay at home. But we turn their country into a hellhole. You know what I'm saying? And then we get crazy now. Like there's some people going, oh, Nayib Bukele, what he's doing is awful with these prisons. Listen, I'm not going to condone that and stuff, but this is an American-born problem. We literally deported people to El Salvador that weren't born in El Salvador. They were criminals here in the United States in gangs. Some of them weren't even criminals, and we deported them to freaking El Salvador. And they weren't even born there. I mean, it's ridiculous. We have to clean our own house. We can only be accountable for our government, and we shouldn't be talking about what these other governments are doing.
All right, fam. So we got to go.
We could
argue about this forever.
Yeah. You can? Okay. I'm getting it out there. All right, guys. So remember, make sure if you want to reach out to the Convo Couch, hit us up at theconvocouch@gmail.com. I am going to Cuba this week. So if you can help me out, Please. We're going to probably do a fundraiser or something. We talked about it, fam. We'll get together on that. We'll let everybody know what's what. We'll probably start either a GoFundMe or another Give, Send, and Go. We'll figure that out.
Not a Give, Send, Go.
What's that?
Guys, we're not starting another Give, Send, Go.
Yeah.
We're not going to allow people to donate to a place that took our money.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that they refunded people, but for doing what they did and not contacting us, and they say like, well, we don't have our management team to reach out and call people. We don't do this. Bullshit. The prayer team has called me twice to pray for Cuba. Let's pray. They called me twice. So you guys can't make a phone call. And here's the thing. After 4 or 5 days, they usually make the funds available. It was 3 weeks that there was funds in that account. They should have called us and let us know. For them to wait and do what they did is pretty awful. So please, if you have a Cash App, $ Pasta Jardula. If you got a Venmo, at Craig-Jardula, hit us up. You can always go to our Patreon too as well. We got that going. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. Fam, that's it. Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella. I thought you'd say something else.
No.
You're supposed to say that you're also on the ones and twos.
I'm also on the ones and twos.
Okay, bye, guys. So rude.
Say
what are
it.
you doing? I already said it.
No, you didn't. You got to say
yes,
the word.
I did. I'm leaving the studio. Goodbye, guys.
Don't
no,
say
goodbye.
it.
No, see
Don't
ya.
make me say it.
See ya.
Say it. Combo out.